Mason Reed was riding the fence line along Miller's Creek when he spotted the burlap sack snagged against a low-hanging cottonwood branch. At first glance it looked like nothing more than feed trash drifted down from upstream, but it moved wrong, too heavy, too deliberate, in the slow brown current. He swung down from Thunder, boots splashing into the shallows, and hooked the sack with the butt of his quirt. The rope around its neck was knotted tight, the burlap sodden and cold. When he lifted it, water poured from the seams and something inside gave a thin, desperate sound. A cry. Mason's fingers fumbled the knot loose. He peeled the wet cloth back and stared down at a baby girl, no more than 8 or 9 months old. Her lips were blue, her skin the color of river clay, blonde curls plastered to her skull. One tiny fist uncurled toward him as if reaching for something she'd already lost. "Mama," she whispered, the word barely louder than the creek itself. The sound struck him like a bullet. 10 years fell away in an instant, Emily screaming his name, the roar of flames, the small shape he couldn't reach. He pressed the child against his chest, wrapped her inside his coat, and mounted Thunder in one motion. "Hold on, little one," he said, voice rough. "Just hold on." Thunder ran like the devil was behind them. Mason kept the baby tight against his heart, feeling each shallow breath against his shirt. By the time Main Street appeared, her grip on his finger had gone slack, but she was still breathing, barely. He burst into Dr. Michael Stone's office without knocking. The doctor looked up from his coffee, took one look at Mason's face, and set the cup down hard. "Table. Now." Mason laid her down as gently as if she were made of glass. Dr. Stone worked fast, warm blankets, stethoscope, quiet commands. Mason paced the small room, boots thudding on the pine floor, unable to look away from the tiny rise and fall of her chest. "She's hypothermic and dehydrated," Stone said. "But she's a fighter." The door opened again. Grace Harper stepped in, drawn by the raised voices. The schoolteacher froze when she saw the child. Something in her face crumpled, then steadied. "You need help?" she asked the doctor. Stone didn't look up. "I need someone who won't flinch." "You in?" Grace hesitated only a heartbeat before rolling up her sleeves. Over the next 3 days, Mason and Grace took shifts. Mason learned to warm bottles without scalding his wrist. Grace showed him how to support a head that weighed almost nothing. They spoke little at first, both carrying old graves in their eyes, but the baby demanded everything they had left to give. On the 3rd morning, Grace watched the child gum a spoonful of mashed carrot and said quietly, "She needs a name. We can't keep calling her the baby." Mason studied the bright blue eyes fixed on him. "She's still here when she had every reason not to be," he said. "Call her Hope." Hope smiled at the sound of it, as if she'd been waiting to be named. Dr. Stone pronounced her out of danger the next day. That same afternoon, Sheriff Williams arrived with news that turned the air cold again. "Somebody's asking questions about a missing infant," he said. "Offering a $1,000 reward. And the questions are coming from the Thornton place." Richard Thornton owned half the county and most of its fear. When his assistant inquired about a lost child, people noticed. 2 days later, Maria Gonzalez, the Thorntons' maid of 15 years, slipped into the schoolhouse after classes. Tears streaked her face as she told Grace the rest. The baby was Rebecca Thornton's, born in secret, declared dead to spare the family shame. The mayor had paid a man to make the problem disappear in Miller's Creek. Grace listened without blinking. When Maria finished, Grace simply said, "They're not taking her." Mason's answer, when she told him that night, was quieter but no less certain, "Not while I'm breathing." The fight came quickly. Judge Parker set a custody hearing for the following week. Thornton arrived with a Dallas lawyer and a signed affidavit. Mason and Grace had Tom Bradley, who mostly wrote deeds, and the truth. The courtroom was packed. Hope sat in Grace's lap, chewing on the ear of a wooden horse Mason had carved. She babbled "Mama" whenever Grace shifted, and reached for Mason with perfect confidence. Witnesses came and went. Rebecca took the stand, pale and trembling, and admitted she had believed her daughter dead for months. When asked what she wanted now, her voice cracked. "I thought I wanted her back," she said. "But she doesn't know me. She's afraid of me." She looked at Hope, then at Grace. "She knows where she belongs." Grace's testimony was steady. She spoke of bruises she'd seen on Rebecca years earlier, of a father's rage and a daughter's terror. The whispers in the gallery grew until Judge Parker banged his gavel for order. Then Hope, restless after hours on Grace's lap, slid to the floor. She took 3 wobbly steps across the aisle and fell into Mason's waiting arms, laughing "Papa," loud enough for the back row to hear. The room went still. Judge Parker cleared his throat. "I've seen a lot of claims on children in my time," he said. "Blood, money, reputation. But I just watched a little girl choose her parents. Case closed. Custody to Mason Reed and Grace Harper. Child's name remains Hope Reed." Thornton stormed out. Rebecca stayed. She approached slowly, eyes on her daughter. "May I?" she asked Grace. Grace placed Hope in her arms. This time the baby didn't cry. She studied Rebecca's face with solemn curiosity, then reached up and patted her cheek once, gently, before twisting back toward Grace. Rebecca smiled through tears. "Thank you for loving her when I couldn't." 6 months later, Mason and Grace married in the little church on Main Street. Hope, now toddling with purpose, scattered wildflowers down the aisle and shouted "Mama, Papa," at all the wrong moments, delighting everyone. Years rolled on. Hope grew tall and fearless, riding beside Mason, reading beside Grace, visiting Aunt Rebecca on Sundays. She knew her story, every hard, true part of it, and carried it without shame. On her 5th birthday, surrounded by cake and laughter, someone asked what she wished for when she blew out the candles. Hope looked around the crowded room, at Mason's weathered smile, Grace's gentle eyes, Rebecca's quiet pride, and grinned. "I already got my wish," she said. "A long time ago, beside a creek." That night, tucked into bed, she asked for the story one more time. Grace smoothed her hair and began, soft and steady. Once there was a cowboy riding fence who heard the tiniest voice calling for help. And Hope fell asleep knowing exactly where she belonged, chosen, fought for, and loved beyond measure.